So what is the highest tax bracket we've ever had in the United States? What's the highest percentage of our income the government has ever expected us to hand over as a portion of our income tax? That's the question we're going to answer today. I'm Marc Tomei. I'm with Hindsight Financial, and for over 20 years I've been helping people make money decisions. And when it comes to retirement decisions, few are more important than where you store your wealth. Where you store your treasure, where you put your money is what is going to determine the rules you live by, the earnings you get, the taxes you pay, the whole thing. So it's a really important thing. And there's a news story out right now in France where the government that just stepped into power is proposing a 90% tax on income over $400,000 or 400,000 euros, as the case may be over there. But it got me thinking, could that happen to us? Has that ever happened to us? So I did a little bit of research. And like I said today, if you stick with me for this entire video, I'm going to let you know the highest tax bracket we've ever had. But I'm going to give you a little bit of background first and some dates and time to kind of explain some things. You know, we started taxing income in 1913 with the Revenue Act. And it was a 1% tax on income up to $20,000, and it was supposed to be temporary. The maximum tax bracket that you could have faced at that time was 7%. And that you had to have $500,000 of earnings to get there. Very few people. And it was really supposed to be a temporary tax, but the government quickly got addicted to taxing our wealth. And now we have the rest of this story to tell. Into the period of World War II, we saw the taxes gradually climbing. And the top threshold to pay the top tax bracket, because this is really the one that the government's saying you are the top earners and this is the top tax bracket, so you must be doing really well, dropped from what had been $5 million, dropped all the way to $200,000. So now all of a sudden you had people who are earning more than $200,000 and that top tax bracket hit 88%. Think about that. Any earnings over $200,000 had to be taxed at 88%, and that's still not the highest. So I'm going to skip forward and then we'll work our way back to the highest. But in 1988, some pretty important things happened with the Reagan tax cuts. There were some issues in 81 and issues in 88. So we'll start with 81. In 1981, the top tax bracket was 50%, but the bracket earnings threshold dropped all the way to $85,600. So you can quickly see, it used to be about the wealthiest of the wealthy hit these top tax brackets. Well, in 81, that dropped to 50% tax bracket, dropped the threshold to $85,600, and that's still not even the worst. 1988, the Reagan tax cuts, 28% top tax bracket, but the threshold to get there was lowered also to 28%. So think about that for a minute. $28,000 of earnings puts you in the top tax bracket, paying 28% of your income. You know, this was never really intended to be this way, but all throughout the 50s, the top tax bracket was about 91%. 91. And it bounced back and forth between 200,000 and 400,000, depending on the year, what tax year and what threshold existed. But 91 was the top tax bracket. It's time to reveal the highest tax bracket. In 1944 and in 1945, 2 years in history where we had a $200,000 earnings threshold for the top tax bracket, and drum roll please, 94%. I'll say that again, 94%, 94 cents of every dollar earned over that threshold went to the government. And that doesn't include state income taxes. That's just the federal side of things. So why is this important? And why am I bringing all this up? Because as a retiree and as somebody who's preparing for retirement, you have to decide where to store your treasure, where to put your wealth. And unfortunately, an entire generation has been convinced that the best way to save for retirement is in a 401k or in an IRA. And those pre-tax accounts are coming home to roost as people start to learn. The big lie is you will not land in a lower tax bracket in retirement, not if you want to maintain the same lifestyle that you've been living on. So what if you were doing financial planning in the 80s and your advisor told you we're going to manage the brackets and the first tax bracket is 10% or 12% and we can fit this many earnings into that, and people try to get all sophisticated at managing tax brackets. Well, what if that happened and you showed up to retirement and the minimum tax bracket was 28, not 10? What does that do to your retirement income calculation? It cuts you almost in third and you've had no control over it whatsoever. The government controls how much of your account they own and how much income you need to earn to hit the thresholds of the highest taxation that we've ever had. So my point here is, yes, maybe that 90% bracket could happen in the United States, and it reaffirms my belief that retirement should be a tax-exempt exercise. Your money, you pay those taxes when you're working in a known rate, when you have deductions and exemptions and write-offs, right? All of those things that you have in your working years, when you're raising a family or when you're paying mortgages. Everybody tells you that when you get to retirement, you're going to be in a lower bracket. Your kids have grown up and gone away, and your mortgage has been paid off because they told you that was important too. So for those people, all of the money that they've earned in their working years and set aside for retirement now has to come back through Uncle Sam with no deductions, no exemptions. You're basically laid bare before the IRS with all of your wealth. That's a bad place to be. And that's where Hindsight has come into my world. I've talked to countless retirees who have learned this the hard way. The right way to do this is to pay your taxes while you're working and let your growth accumulate in tax-exempt accounts. If that's interesting to you, check us out at hindsightfinancial.com. I'll show you a few ways to do it, and I'll show you the way that works the best. But if this is interesting to you, or if this has created an aha moment for you, my intention is to create many more. So subscribe to the channel, like and share the content, and drop me a comment in the field if you want to hear more. Let me know what you want to hear about. Hopefully this was a wake-up call for you. It was a wake-up call for me. Let's not be France. Get out there and save your money in a tax-exempt way. Have a great day.